Hello there, World of Tankers, and welcome to the channel. I'm of course your host, the Droodles Blitz, and in today's video we are going to be taking a look at the British Tier 8 Premium Heavy Tank, the Caliban. This is an extremely sought-after vehicle and infamous vehicle in World of Tanks PC, all down to the gun it carries, a 152.4mm armament that deals 600 damage with standard ammunition, and it's got an auto-reloader. It can dump out 1200 total damage in a matter of 3.74 seconds, but that's not even the deadly part. It has HE shells with 180mm of high explosive plastic that also deals 850 damage per shot. Yeah, that's right, 1700 potential damage in 4 seconds. That's enough to absolutely eradicate any Tier 8 in front of you. Now imagine 2 of these in platoon in World of Tanks Blitz. Yeah, this is a scary vehicle. Now obviously the statistics when this vehicle is introduced into the game are going to be very different than how it is on PC, but what I can say is that it does carry a 150mm, which means no matter how different the statistics are, we can imagine at lowest you're gonna probably be dealing around 560 damage per shot with your standard ammo. Ooh, that's going to be really, really nasty. I'm not sure if it's going to have a 2-shell autoloader or what Wargaming's going to give it when it's on regards to the gun, but that's only time to tell. In today's video, I'm going to be showcasing the Caliban's armor profile and its statistics on PC to showcase what I can imagine it would be like when it is introduced in the Blitz and how Wargaming is going to possibly balance this vehicle. Now, when we take a look at its DPM, that looks pretty good, right? 2400? Yeah, that's just not the case. That's 2400 DPM when you're only using your high explosive ammunition. Now don't get me wrong, 180mm of high explosive plastic pen is great, but it's not really enough to cut through most Tier 9s, in fact really any Tier 9s. It's not enough to cut through most Tier 8 heavies, and judging that this is a heavy, you're going to be fighting against heavies, so yeah, you do gotta worry about the fact that most of the time you're gonna be sticking to your standard ammo. And, well, when we make our way to the standard ammunition, you go down to 1600 DPM. That's bad. And World of Tanks PC usually has more DPM than Blitz. So I can imagine that if this tank were to come into Blitz, its DPM might just be atrocious. But there are some crazy things even with the terrible DPM it carries. It has 292mm of penetration. That means you don't need premium ammo. In fact, that's like Hori levels of pen at Tier 8 for a heavy. So yeah, the penetration is absolutely ridiculous on this vehicle. But it does have a rate of fire of 2.8 rounds a minute. Yeah, that's pretty bad. You literally fire 2 rounds in a single minute, and then you're like, well, guess that minute's over. Let's go into the next. Yeah, it's got great clipping damage. 1200, it can get it all out in 3.75 seconds, but it's just the fact that your clip takes so long to reload. 21.44 seconds for the first shell, and 34 seconds for the second. Ooh, better hope you don't dump your entire clip with this vehicle, because you are going to have an incredibly long amount of time to reload. Almost a full minute of sitting. So yeah, the Caliban does have its fair share of downsides. While this tank does seem very overpowered in certain situations, I can imagine how easily overcome this tank will be against players that have no clue how to use it, and let's be real, there will be a lot of them. When it comes to this dispersion, oh my, that is terrible. That's worse than a T-49. The aiming time is absolutely atrocious when you realize that this is World of Tanks PC aiming values, which are different than Blitz's. I would say equivalent, it's about a 6-second aiming time in Blitz. Its dispersion is terrible, aiming time's terrible, its on-movement dispersion is possibly the worst in Tier 8, so it's got a lot of downsides when it comes to the gun as well. Its shell velocity is terrible, 500 a second, oh my. And by the way, its HE has 354 meters a second. Oh, yeah, it's bad. It's really, really bad shell velocity. The tank slow only goes 33 of a top speed and 12 in reverse, so it's not great on its overall acceleration, although it does have a pretty solid power-to-weight ratio of 18.4. That's quite surprising. So it's going to reach 33 quite easily, but it's not really going to get past 33 ever. It's got decent traverse speed at 33 degrees a second, but ooh, on soft terrain, 17, that is terrible. So Yeah, tank's got its fair share of downsides even on mobility. It does have 10 degrees of gun depression though, just like most British tanks do carry. And you might think, well, for a tank like this, does it have really good armor, really bad armor? It might surprise you, but this thing actually has really solid armor. This is a T-32 aiming at the front of a Caliban. That's 208 millimeters of standard pen and 245 on the premium. And as you can see, the upper plate's quite strong. It's over 220 millimeters thick. That's quite good, especially for a heavy that is able to deal 600 damage to you and then another 600 in 3.75 seconds. Although it does have a very weak lower plate that is quite easily penetrated by literally anything that goes up against it. But here's the real kicker. The turret is also incredibly strong, which means if you're using the 10 degrees of gun depression, yeah, that is really red. Over 290 millimeters thick. At weakest, it's 230. And that means, yeah, really the only spot you can pen is the roof of this tank. And yeah, that's still pretty tricky at 250 millimeters thick. This is just a tank you're going to struggle to pen. Its upper plate's overmatched, 343 millimeters thick. The edges of the turret are 320. Yeah, it's actually quite impressive how strong the armor is for a vehicle that you would think sacrifices everything for the gun. Now, that's not to say there are weak spots, like you got the roof that you can quite easily penetrate. In fact, if you got a 150, you can easily HE that mantlet, not the mantlet, the cupola. So it does have some weak spots here and there, especially once you get to the side of this tank. Yeah, it's bad. Like, the sides of this tank are atrocious. 35 millimeters. Ooh. Yeah, the entire side, by the way, is 35 millimeters. Even the turret is quite weak. So, if you do get the sides of this tank, and it's quite a big, boxy tank, you can quite easily ruin its day. And also, let's say you pull around a corner like this. You know what also shows is that, and that's only 36 millimeters thick. So, even a T-32 with 53 millimeters of HE pen can penetrate that boot on the back. Gotta keep that in mind, because when this thing comes in the Blitz, I bet it's gonna have very similar armor. Skilled players are going to love tearing this thing apart. You can HE that, you can HE this weak spot here. If you get the sides of this thing, it has no spaced armor. It's just gonna be a party to shoot at the sides of. The rear, ooh, 35 as well. Yeah, the moment you get the sides or the rear of this vehicle, its fun is over. Like, the Caliban is going to be very strong just frontally. It's kind of like an E50M. If you get the sides of it, you're going to fall apart quite quickly. Now, if you want to see an HD model of the tank, why not? So let's go pull it out so I can showcase just how weird of a vehicle this really looks. Yeah, here's the Caliban. As you can see, the sides does have some space, but you can still absolutely badonker the side of the vehicle. So, yeah, it's going to fall apart incredibly quick. When it comes to the front, it's just a weird looking tank, isn't it? I mean, you never expect this thing to actually have good armor. It's kind of big, kind of pompous looking, but yeah, I don't mind the look of it overall. I think it's kind of a cool look. It definitely looks very British to me, though. Either way, I thought I'd make this video showcasing the Caliban because it is a tank that will be entering testing. A lot of people were under the presumption that this was a joke, that it wasn't actually going to be entering the game. No, it is. This is going to be entering testing, as if you couldn't tell by the pictures I showed in the earlier stages of this video. Those were pictures in Blitz of modded files from the game. So, yeah, this tank will be entering the game. That's not a joke, and it's quite easy to see why. Wargaming is going to make a fortune from this tank if it's overpowered. I mean, I can't blame them, really. Either way, it seems like it's going to be a pretty strong tank, but I have no clue how Wargaming is going to balance it in Blitz. I don't even know if it'll get an auto-reloader. It might just get a single-shot gun with 560 damage per shot. What I can say is that it most likely will carry the 6-inch gun, or otherwise known as the 150mm. That is probably going to stay. So this might be the first heavy we're ever going to see down at tier 8 with a truly massive chunk of alpha. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. And let me know if you're excited or scared for this vehicle. But bye-bye.